Welcome to the last session of Disruption Talks focused on sustainability in retail. The last one, at least for now. I will be bringing more sustainability-related discussions to our live events in the future, as it's been a pleasure to host amazing speakers, both from Netguru and other companies that are truly involved in making a positive change across the whole industry. And for those who have not been with us before, you can find all the recordings to the previous sessions on our YouTube channel, and the key takeaways will be published on our blog, and I highly encourage you to check them out and see how we can work together and solve the problems that we currently face from the environmental perspective. And the topic for our discussion today is fast fashion, and more precisely how we can slow it down. My name is Natalia. I'm a content team leader at Netguru, and I will be moderating the discussion today with three amazing speakers. Jinder Kang, who's been with us in all of the sessions previously. He's our innovation consulting lead. We will also have Laura Vicaria, CSR Manager of Mud Jeans, a sustainable and fair trade denim brand that leverages principles of circular economy, and Silvia Mazzanti, a product and sustainability manager at Save the Duck, a company, an animals-free outdoor wear producer and retailer. And I'm also super happy to say that all of the people that will be joining me today are from companies that are B Corp certified, which means that those are businesses that meet the highest standards of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. So, Jinder, welcome. Laura, Silvia, it's a pleasure to have you all here.
Thank you very much, Nat.
for taking the time to speak about this very, very important topic. Laura, Silvia, I'd like to ask you first to say a few words about your role within the organization, about the company, and about yourself, like a short introduction. Laura, you may start.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Vicaria. I'm the CSR Manager, as already introduced. Primarily, Mud Jeans is a circular denim brand. What we do is we make new jeans out of our old jeans. We collect them back and plug them back in to production to take care and take responsibility over our own waste. My role as sustainability manager and in a circular company, it's very much about ensuring that we are remaining pioneers in that field. So really working with all team members that are involved in that process and always trying to reach for the highest levels of sustainability and circularity. Really primarily just striving for that continuous improvement.
Thank you so much. And Silvia?
Hi, and nice to meet you, everybody. I'm Silvia Mazzanti from Save the Duck, an Italian company. We, as we said before, we are a B Corp. We produce outerwear mainly from both virgin materials and recycled ones. Our DNA is basically concentrated in the protection of animals, firstly. But obviously, we try to take care as our best to the environment and people around us. So my role inside the company is partially still involved in the product development. That is my heritage. I have been doing this since the last over 20 years. And now here in Save to Dock, I'm also taking care of the sustainability development of the company. And we are struggling to improve in all the fields we are involved in, starting from the product development, but also the engagement of our stakeholders and the enhancing of responsibility towards the managing of garments from the stakeholders side. So that's it.
Thank you so much. As I said, it's great to have you here. So fast fashion basically changed the way we consume clothes. We used to be buying clothes as something that we would wear for years, and right now we got to the point where clothes are basically considered as disposable goods. So we buy them, wear them a couple of times, and then we just basically throw them away, and they end up on the landfills, which is a big problem. But as opposed to this, we have circular economy that basically is based on 5 principles to repair, reuse, recycle. Laura probably can help me here, Jinder.
Purpose and
reduce, rent. Yeah.
Rent and repair as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so how your companies are leveraging those principles in their production?
You asking to me, Nat?
Yes, Silvia, you can start.
Okay. Well, we are just starting our process towards sustainability. It has also to be said that our brand is quite new because it has been settled 10 years ago. And producing outerwear, we see the first collection, garments from the first collection are still around in town. So we know that they're long lasting, and we are just starting now to thinking how to manage the eventual disposal of our garments. And uh, first of all, we are very concentrated in creating, as I said, awareness in the way our final users, our product lovers, they manage our products. They have to take care, first of all, in the proper way to make them last even longer. And after they are no longer in love with them, we give it suggestions of how to recover them, or we suggest to give as presents to people around them, or to people in need, or just to sell through sustainable tools that are very common now, especially in the internet. And we are basically working on that now. There is a small project we will be launching in a few weeks, so I cannot talk about that now. Sorry, and cannot disclose. Um, Even though my boss yesterday in an interview released there is a little project about giving a second chance to our products. So there will be a small tool that we're launching in few weeks. And well, we are working together with other companies, and this is something that I personally really appreciated. We're working with other companies, brands, and ingredients, with the support of a very well-known Italian university, Bocconi, to build KPIs that wants to help companies to have a tool to drive towards transparency and traceability towards circularity. So the aim of all of us is to bring contributions to build these KPIs. And we also presented this project to UNEC recently, last month, to enhance this kind of attitude, to try to reduce this um, feeling that people has to want just use and dispose quickly garments. It's something that we never felt belonging to our brand, so we want really to fight it. Garments can last, have to last for long. This is the way we build products, but the most critical part is at the end of the value chain, because we know how to build, to study, and to create and develop. We're using the right materials. We are working very hard on that side, but the last steps are really the most critical ones at present.
I will definitely want to go back to the materials that you use, but I also want to give Laura a voice because you have been working on a very amazing models how you can use circular economy in the production, including renting jeans.
Yes,
Is that correct?
exactly. Yes. Well,
So how
leasing.
does it work?
We call it leasing. Well, Mudjeans was really founded on circularity. So if you're, that makes it slightly easier, so to speak, if you build the brand with that model already in mind. So we incorporate circularity in the following ways. We design in that way. So all of our products contain monomaterials, primarily cotton, and it's a blend of GOTS certified organic cotton with post-consumer recycled cotton that comes from our old jeans coming from the end of the loop, right? We have a very short supply chain. Everything's really close by. Our business model, which is what you just hit, which is our lease model, we lease our jeans to our customers, giving them the experience of a new garment without the environmental anxiety behind it, meaning that they can lease that product for 12 months, and at the end of those 12 months, they're able to keep it if they want to, or we encourage it to send it back and start a new lease. The idea behind this model, whether you're leasing or buying, the message is the same. What we're trying to do is to shift the culture of fashion, this concept of ownership, and make it again, or make it, sorry, the standard of businesses taking responsibility over their own products at all stages of life. The jeans that come back, sorry, I should also mention that in between there, we have the repair service. So jeans in the first year have a repair service available. That's also part of circularity. Then the jeans that come back that are still in good condition actually form part of our vintage collection. Again, an important step of extending the life of that product. And then finally, the jeans that are really worn out and cannot be lived any further, they are recycled, shredded, and reblended into new yarns and fabric that we use for our new collections. And that's
So
basically how we close the
no
loop.
waste.
There is no waste in production in the sense of, our product being
Textiles.
burnt and all of that stuff. We know that we produce 20% waste in the cutting, but that waste actually goes and is used for stuffing and isolation. So it's repurposed. And actually, one of the key objectives this year is to do further calculations and understanding of our waste across the entire supply chain, which can be quite complicated to do. A lot of people focus more on the end, which is very important because that's where a lot of the environmental impact is. But it's also very important to know where the waste across your supply chain is in order to find solutions for it.
And what is the role of sustainable materials in the whole supply chain? And also, what's the role of certification of those materials? Because I know that both of the Save the Duck and Mud Jeans are using certified producers. Silvia, would you like to start?
I go. Well, this is indeed the way we started doing sustainability in our company. We didn't have a lot of clue at the beginning. I'm talking about really almost 10 years ago, of how we had to structure all these topics. So it was just our way, our interpretation of the best way to manage the business. And so there were upcoming questions from customers. They wanted to know, since we produce in China, if our products were enough good. I don't know how to say it in other words, nice way. Especially here in Italy, where the business started, the distribution started, there was this idea of Chinese products equal low-level products. This indeed is not true. It depends in the way you're facing your supply chain, and you're cooperating with your supply chain. Um, the way we started doing this, so passing the message that it could be a good level, not just of quality, but also of value behind the supply chain, started by asking to the raw material suppliers to show us how they were um, developing their products. So, with a third part certificate, we can prove to stakeholders that they are monitored and that they are doing things in the right way. Same thing happened with the manufacturers. So, the tier one. Um, we asked them not only to check physically how they were building our products, but also to demonstrate through a third part monitoring that they were treating their workers in the right way. So this happened even before the creation, the settled of the brand. And we are carrying these long relationships with our suppliers we're very proud of. We don't have this attitude that is quite typical of Italian or European companies that go there and they want to impose their way of um, practicing business and to lead, to become a kind of owner, to impose their presence there. We cooperate and we try to involve all our manufacturers, and now we're struggling to reach tier two strongly and to involve them much more in our way of doing sustainability. So they perfectly know that we are
Mhm.
engaged with B Corp and with many activities and working groups inside the Italian group of B Corps, and we try to involve them. So it's fundamental for us that everything is traced and can be transparently transmitted, this message, to all our stakeholders inside the company and outside the company, obviously. So it's something that has to be given for granted, and it's just the base and a part of the role that we have in creating value, a product that has a value also in the message that is passing. So if we're not
Mhm.
doing well from the origin, we cannot be reliable in passing this kind of message.
So I have a follow-up question here. So you still cooperate with companies from China, which is how, like, what basically a lot of fast fashion brands get a bad press for. So, and a lot of those brands, they do claim that they watch the supply chain, they don't use child labor, like the working conditions are well, people are getting paid, but still there is not enough. And how do you make sure that actually, like, everything is transparent and
Um,
um, you can basically transparently say openly to your customers that we, uh, without a guarantee that this is fair trade.
we also have a very short and concentrated supply chain. We have
Mm-hmm.
uh, three main suppliers for raw materials, and we have from 6 to 10 manufacturers. This means that before COVID, obviously, unfortunately, every season we were visiting and going there. Uh, every season, one of us, but
Mm-hmm.
there is many of us in the staff. So um, there were many chances for all of us to go there in person from Italy to visit the factories. But it's not only that. We have such a straight relationship because we have our own staff there. There's a reason why we kept the bulk production there. We are an Italian brand, this is true, but we have a very international distribution. So goods are leaving from China, from all over the world. They don't pass through the Italian warehouse to be distributed. They just leave from there, and it's much more convenient and energy saving and emission saving to send goods directly from there to US, where we sell 40% of our garments, and to Asia, and the rest is coming to Italy, the rest of the products. So it's very strategic, the position of China in that sense. And apart from that, as I said, we are very concentrated not only in the number of supplier, but also the area. We produce everything in the Zhejiang area, and we have an office there with local people. There are daily going to factories and they work side by side with them, so they perfectly know, and it's our people. So if there is something wrong or something that is not in line with our principles going on, we perfectly know, because it's a day by day relationship. It's not a commission. We are not just holding the production to the factory that offers the lowest price. This is not, has never been our aim. We never worked like that. So basically, that's the difference between fast fashion that is producing there and the kind of production that we lead there. Obviously, we're not the only brand produced in these facilities, but we know what other brands are produced there. And believe me, fast fashion cannot afford that kind of structures. Obviously, we are not working with just with the best. We're working with companies that wants to grow together with us. I think this is the basic difference. We're not just letting them work for us. We are asking them to cooperate under many aspects, also in collecting data to understand emissions and consumptions, and working for them to understand how we can all together decrease the impacts. These are paths that can be built only together. Otherwise, it's not possible to just declare what you said. This you cannot do with a supply chain that is not in strict interconnection. And we know that this word is very important for B Corps. Interdependency is something fundamental to grow together in this direction, and makes the difference between us and other companies. They're just, I think, declaring what they're trying to do at their best, but I don't believe it's so deep. It's going so in deep.
Okay, and Laura, how does your supply chain look like? Because you are a Dutch company, right?
Indeed, we are based in Amsterdam, but our supply chain is very small, and we do this on purpose for the idea of transparency and traceability. So a quick run through, the jeans are recycled in a facility called Recover in Spain. There they are also, the yarn is blended in with GOTS certified organic cotton to make the new yarn. Then Tejidos Rollo is the factory also in Spain. So they travel small distances where the new fabric is made. And then that fabric is shipped over to Tunisia, all on land. So nothing travels by air, which is highly polluting when it comes to transportation. And in Tunisia, in one location, all of our jeans are cut, stitched, and washed. And that is also quite unique for the denim industry. Typically, industry standard companies have one facility for the cutting and stitching, and then completely another facility for the washing process. So that basically is our supply chain, all, if you look at the map, very close to home. Again, with an environmental objective there.
Laura, I have one kind of follow-up question, if that's okay.
Yeah, shoot.
It's a very, very interesting business model, and the fact that you actually built the whole model on the idea of circularity. I was just trying to understand what the motivation and the kind of trigger was to make Mud follow this route.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Because it really gives an essence to the mission of Mud Jeans. So Mud Jeans was founded by Bert van Son. He's our CEO back in 2013. And he had already worked in the fashion industry for many years, and he had seen sort of the horrid realities of the industry, both from an environmental perspective, but also from a social perspective. So he set on to develop a brand that is really the mission to demonstrate by doing that an alternative is possible. So it's very easy to say it, but if you're doing it, you're actually demonstrating that circularity works, functions, and it's powerful. And it has its benefits than the industry standard. To revolutionize the fashion industry in this way, he chose to work only with denim because it's it's a product that is relatable to everyone, whether you like fashion or not. You don't have to be the fashionista to be attached to your jeans that you wear on a daily basis. And it's one of these products that everyone has in their wardrobes. So if we take that simple product, make it circular, beautiful, and classy, and all of those things, demonstrate that it works, and in that whole process, share all of our knowledge. That's really how we strive to demonstrate that circularity is possible and revolutionize the industry in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the answer. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. We have one question from Christoph. I think it's already been answered, but yeah, I'm going to ask it now. Are the customers able to repair your clothes through you if they get damaged? And I do understand that you have 12-year warranty. What happens afterwards?
No, we don't have 12. Or are you talking to Silvia or me?
Let's do one by one, because you do repair clothes. You do repair jeans that get damaged.
We do, but within the first year, not 12 years.
12 months.
Yeah, 12 months exactly. And yes, we repair them, and the objective, well, our customers can reach out to us, and actually the first thing we say is, hey, look, if you have a local tailor, take them there, or seamstress, and get them to fix it and send us the receipt online via email, and then we will refund you up to 10 euros. And there, again, the objective is to limit the transportation of jeans coming back and forth. Yeah, that's what we do.
And then I have an open questions for actually the three of you, because I do believe that what already Laura mentioned, that it's easier to set up the brand that it's already based in circularity. So basically build a whole model with having that concept in mind. But how can those fast fashion brands incorporate different parts of those elements of circular economy into their business to slowly move to that whole loop of circularity when there is no or very little waste?
Yeah, I think so looking at a fast fashion company, one of the first steps that they need to do is have an understanding of their supply chain. That's always a first step, because knowing where your product is coming from and the materials that go into your product, then you can start identifying solutions. And from there, slowly finding alternative solutions, sustainable solutions towards your product in materials, chemicals, and all of those things. But you can't start making those changes until you know what is going into your product. So that's my recommendation. And that doesn't mean necessarily that you have to stop working with the people that you're working. In fact, something that Silvia was saying, I very much agree with. It's working in collaboration with your supply chain partners, and together you grow and move forward in a direction of sustainability and circularity. Because at the end of the day, it's a journey, and it's not about excluding. It's really about It's an inclusive action of, okay, everyone needs to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the rest
Silvia?
of you perhaps. Yeah.
Because you are actually going through that journey.
Yeah, I completely agree with Laura. It's something that it's needed for the whole world to take responsibility. I cannot imagine in the future companies that are saying to their customers that they don't care about who's going to stitch together the garments and what is the material that they made it they used to make them. It's not just a matter of composition, obviously, but of the exploitation of resources. Um, we have to consider. We recently had a meeting, and a colleague, from another big corp, from a completely different business, was saying we signed a lot of pledges during these years, but now it's time to do things because we have no longer time. So it's a matter of understanding that this kind of business model cannot last for long. Uh, the awareness of people, of stakeholders, of what usually are called consumers. I don't like very much this word. The final users of our products want to be guaranteed that they are not wearing objects that are ruining the environment, damaging people. And I can imagine my daughter, she's 10, and all this kind of age of people, they don't want, they will not have take this responsibility in wearing harmful objects, harmful under a social or environmental point of view. um, we easily see this at present towards animals. We are very sensitive, obviously, about this topic, but a lot of big players are giving up using fur and this kind of the special skins like snakes and crocodiles, because basically people don't want to wear them anymore because they know how much cruelty is behind this. Maybe if we pass the message that it's no longer acceptable that also people, exploited people along the value chain, um, exist, and they don't, it doesn't have to exist anymore. Maybe they then giving up choosing products from that kind of suppliers, of brands. So I think the responsibility of fast fashion is to move towards that direction. Obviously, they cannot stop immediately selling all the quantities that they're selling, but if they could guarantee a better quality level, longer lasting, a better care for the products that they sell, that they not have to be disposed after wearing them 3 times, that's gonna change a lot uh, the perspective. From our side too, we as Laura said, we always consider when a customer comes up to us saying, I had a problem with my zipper, I broke my I made a hole on the sleeve. Usually we try to balance the less impactful solution. So we, for instance, send to them zipper to substitute the broken one instead of taking back the garment, repairing it, and sending it back because this is causing too much emissions, or sending repairing kits to avoid them to substitute the object, because with a little solution, it can last for long.
And I also want to ask on your perspective, because on the first session we had with Jinder, and there was Gio from ACPC, the CEO of the ACPC, that is a sustainable sneakers producer. I feel that you do have a cooperation with the company.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we were speaking about whether those like fast fashion brands are authentic in the purpose? And do you actually believe that they want to make a change because they believe that if we don't act right now, then nothing's going to change in the next 10 years? Or they basically see that, okay, because consumers want sustainability, and sustainability has been the buzzword, so we have to just basically run another marketing campaign. So do you believe they're authentic?
ACBC, you mean?
No.
No,
I mean the
no,
fast
fast
fashion,
fashion.
big
The fast
fashion brands. Yes.
Sorry. Well, to be
Gio
honest,
definitely convinced me that they are authentic.
to be honest,
ACBC. Yeah.
yeah, they are, because we drove them into the B Corp movement. So I personally did so. um, well, to be honest, I think at present the most common attitude is the one of using sustainability as a marketing tool, especially in our business, in fashion. Um, it's very convenient to have a single sustainable project without changing the whole process. And the very big issue is that people can start thinking that brands that are having just one sustainable project are doing well, and so they keep buying the same products. But this is not just from fast fashion, it's also from luxury. It's
Mm-hmm.
the problem is the same, flat. um, so sometimes when I hear that a sustainability manager comes from the marketing department, it's not very easy to believe that they're truthful.
Mm-hmm. Laura, what's your perspective? Do you believe in that authenticity?
Yeah, authenticity. Well, I think you can very quickly, well, my opinion with this topic, and it links very much to the whole greenwashing aspect, is I rely a lot on numbers, and numbers tend to really hint at the genuine effort of a brand or not. So that's a little bit my approach. I think that a company that is trying to look at its impact, understand its impact, and shares that in a transparent and genuine way, and has demonstrated what their goals are, I automatically trust them a bit more than the ones that just say, yes, we want to be sustainable because we are using labels that are, made out of paper instead of plastic. And it's just, that doesn't say much, obviously. But I think as a customer, it's just becoming increasingly difficult to really understand what's a genuine sustainable company. So I think any company that has a sustainability section, a clear sustainability section on their website, and demonstrates what their efforts are and report on those efforts on an annual basis with genuine numbers, already is a good step forward.
So let's move to the numbers and the topic of, unless Jinder, you want to add something or you want to express your opinion.
No, I actually agree with both Laura and Silvia.
Yeah.
About authenticity, I have my doubts. I very much see this idea of greenwashing. I think if we look at fast fashion in particular, we've moved from 4 seasons to 20 seasons, and the idea of encouraging impulse buy-in doesn't really tie into the messaging that comes from the other side, right? So yes, I'm very much in agreement, but let's move to the numbers.
Okay. So in terms of like the pollution that is caused by the fast fashion industry, textile industry, it's heartbreaking. Industry emits 10% of all humanity carbon emissions. It takes a lot of water to produce garments, to farm cotton. For instance, to produce 1 kilogram of cotton takes 2,000 liters of water. So it's very water not water efficient production. And I want to ask you, how does it look in mud jeans and Save the Duck? Laura, you can maybe start,
Sure, happy to.
because you can
So,
actually have those numbers public on your sustainability website.
yeah, exactly. So an industry standard pair of jeans consumes on average 7,000, some say 10,000 liters of water. That is from cotton bulb to final product. A pair of mud jeans on average consumes 477 liters of water. Um, that's a 93% difference. We take the 7,000 value based on the research that we've done. So yes, that is a big difference. And the reason why we have achieved that is because we moved away from conventional cotton, and we use GOTS certified organic cotton and between 23 and 40% post-consumer recycled cotton. So by using that recycled cotton specifically means that we are not extracting raw material from the planet, from the soil, and that already saves a significant amount of water. But also from a manufacturing perspective, we're able to achieve that because our suppliers use state-of-the-art technology to produce jeans, especially, for example, in the dyeing process that requires a lot of water, typically to dye denim in this dark, all denim typically starts in this blue indigo color, and you have to pass the yarn through multiple baths of that dye in order to reach that color. But now our suppliers have a technique that's called foam dyeing. So it completely eliminates those baths and applies just the foam of the dye, and that's how it applies that color. There you're saving 99% of the water. And then
And does
in the
it
washing
impact
process,
the longevity of the product, of the
No.
color of the product?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And this is where technology really comes in. You have really, because of the technology that we have now, we have even better and more efficient solutions to producing garments that in many ways are still being produced how they were being produced 40, 50 years back. So that's why when it comes to sustainability, technology has a huge role to play. And then the final thing is just, for example, our washing facilities, they recycle 95% of the water, and the 5% that evaporizes from that process is then filled in with rainwater. Those are some of the numbers and techniques that helped us reach those values.
And what about carbon emissions? How do you
Our
limit there?
Yep. Our carbon emissions, we have a 74% lower CO2 emission than industry standard. And again, it's to do, again, with all of those innovative production techniques. Believe it or not, using conventional cotton has an impact in your CO2 consumption. And then the facilities where our jeans are recycled and the fabric is produced, they use renewable energy sources. And the final facility where the jeans are cut, stitched, and washed, they are currently, well, they did a lot of work on being energy efficient, so changing a lot their manufacturing techniques to be as efficient as possible in their energy consumption. And now we're working together for them to adopt renewable energy sources.
And Silvia, you have pledged that until 2030, Save the Duck is going to be carbon free. So what's the journey here?
Well, a tough journey. We started in 2018 before pledging to net zero 2030 to calculate the emissions. Firstly, we started with our own emissions, scope 1 and 2. And the next year, we made inventory also of our scope 3. was not easy, because although we have this strong relationship with our partners, it was a, it has to be said, a completely new topic for them. So we teach them how to collect what kind of data we needed, and we explained also how we were analyzing this data and what the output was. So very interesting indeed, and very tough at the same time, to get into this process. Um, just before committing, we already reduced as much as we could the scope 1 and 2 emissions, and now we're
Mhm.
working hard with them to understand and start working on the way we can reduce their emissions. Of course, we produce, so obviously there are emissions we cannot avoid. We are sure we can do better, and we're working hard at present. It's a long path. I'm happy to hear what Laura was explaining. It's a wonderful example, and it's always beautiful to have examples to follow, and they're pushing us always to try to do better. So
Mhm.
we are in the path. We will compensate this year the emissions that we actually have, but at the same time we never forget the importance of reducing. So that's my hardest goal to reach at present, because compensating is quite easy.
Yeah. And do you have any particular actions planned to reduce maybe the technologies that you are planning to introduce?
Well, it has to be said that our factories are using a lot of state of the art technologies to manufacture our garments. So
Mm-hmm.
this is something we have already done in the past. So we're getting the fruits of these changes happened during the years. But for sure, they're not so much aware about how they can reduce, for instance, energy emissions. Uh, this for what concerns tier one. The the most part of our emissions is related to our tier two suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, we have three main ones. So we're working with them, together with them, and they are already in the path of reducing their. Two of the three are um, linked to science-based targets. So they had, one of them has already their goals approved from science-based targets. So they're already in the path of reducing, and we hope that soon we're gonna have numbers to show, interesting ones,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully.
Do you have anything more to add in terms of like how maybe what are other ways to basically produce less emissions, less waste, consume less water?
Well, for sure, starting from we analyzed the way we design, we study, we develop the
Mm-hmm.
collections from here. So the team that is just in front of me in the other room uh, is working now to um, discuss every season with the designer to optimize cuts, and we're
Mm-hmm.
also approaching the 3D modeling to save a lot of prototyping and phases of the development. So there are things that technology can help to avoid
Mm-hmm.
emissions, and so this is the best way that we found at present, to start from what we do here, saving emissions from the first phases for sure. And regarding the tier two, we push them to be linked to the MRSL of zero discharge hazardous chemicals, to monitor their
Mm-hmm.
wastewaters, and uh, both of the fabric suppliers are already engaged with this. The padding supplier is a little bit smaller, so they're a little bit scared of approaching this, even though it has to be said they don't use a lot of water, because the operation for synthetic padding doesn't need a lot of wastewaters. That doesn't produce a lot of wastewaters.
And
I was
go
going
on,
to
Jinder.
interrupt and ask a question, if that's okay. So
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
obviously there's a lot of B Corp retailers who I would most definitely say are definitely not the same thing as fast fashion. It's very much that idea of alternatives to what's currently available on the market, right? Both in luxury and fast fashion. But if a fast fashion organization came to you guys and asked or admitted they were finally authentic in their purpose of sustainability, what would be the one key advice that you would say to them to take away in order to actually facilitate real change? I'll start with you, Silvia.
Well, probably the real and strong engagement needs to start and to be clearly declared and honestly declared by the head of the company. Also, Laura was saying that in our case it's the same. It's the owner and the creator, the founder of the company, of the brand, that wanted the brand to be like that. So if the head, so the leading roles, want these processes to become real and concrete, everything can be possible. If the head of the company is just saying, okay, do that, but you have to guarantee this kind of revenues, it doesn't work so well, in my opinion.
And
Laura, what's your
Laura, the
advice?
same.
Well, what Silvia said is really spot on. I think also to have a genuine approach, you have to really just do it entirely. Don't start with 2% of your supply chain, because that doesn't reflect a genuine intention. It's to become a true sustainable brand and approach it in a genuine way, where you will actually see, okay, what you will need to do. You have to truly commit your entire business to it. And then transparency. I think transparency is so incredibly important, and it's empowering. It's not just about you being transparent to the people outside of the company and the people you work with, et cetera, but knowledge is power. Knowing where everything comes from and how it's made, the chemicals that go in there, all of those little details is an empowering knowledge that will allow you to be better. That's my recommendation.
That's beautiful said. Jinder, what do you tell?
I agree with both Laura and Silvia. I think that the idea of transparency is of utmost importance, because how can you look to start any improvements if you don't understand where the issues currently lie?
Yeah.
And then what Laura just said there about that idea of knowledge is power. We've spoken before, Nat, on these talks. I'm a big believer, if you really want to drive actual change, it's about building on the power of the collective, and the idea of not utilizing the knowledge that you've ascertained as your competitive advantage necessarily, but how that can be shared with other players in the game, people that you might see as competitors or insurgents into the market. But that ability is, if we are authentic in the idea of using sustainability for good and not for profitability, it's the idea of sharing that knowledge, and the idea of the next player won't necessarily have to start from zero, but the idea that it needs to be a group effort, because as you say, Natalia, when you give us the facts, you give us the detrimental effect of the industry, not the individual players. And that's the same on the positive. We need to see the positive growth of the industry, the positive efforts of the industry together. And we've seen models appear, such as in Scandinavia, and they often lead the way in certain things, But we've seen elements of the supply chain being shared. So, for example, I can't remember the name of the company right now, but sharing of storage, logistics and freight and so forth, right? So, whereas we've seen other retailers have utilized elements of the supply chain as a competitive advantage and as an opportunity to lock out any insurgents or incumbents in the market. So, long story short, I agree with both Silvia and Laura that it's very much about transparency, it's very much about knowledge, and it's also that idea that it's kind of a two-sided problem, and we need to tackle it from both sides. And there is that element of personal social responsibility, but as a retailer, it's also our job to educate, inform, and enable the users. I would be very careful not to use the word consumers in front of Silvia, but to ensure that they have the knowledge as well of the garment history, as Laura says, but also of our practices, and not just the data that we want to share, but all the data should be available for people to see. If it's not, we should be empowered enough as the user to have alarm bells start ringing. And that was my long story short.
That's a beautiful wrap up. And I actually wanted to ask the last question regarding the consumers, because fast fashion is still the way why people will still go to the shops and then buy from those retailers, except for the fact that it's cheap, but it's also very convenient. People go, they know the size, they go, they buy, and then like super easy. So how we can make the shift in that behavior through educating them?
I want to say
Yes, go
one
on,
small
Jinder.
thing, sorry. This is when we go back to the idea of authenticity, and part of the reason of fast fashion is what we were talking about, that idea of if I see something, will it still be here next time? And it encourages us to impulse buy. And unless that business model changes, that behavior won't change necessarily in consumers until we're at that point where we know, if we know enough to understand the business model and the tricks, similar to what you would call in US, the idea of dark patterns, right? Something that's encouraging us to take a behavior that we shouldn't really be taking. And now I will hand over.
What the consumer should know to change that behavior. Laura, one sentence.
One sentence. Ooh. No, I think
Maybe three.
definitely, the industry plays a very strong role and has a very big responsibility in shaping culture and culture of consumerism. So that's also something that we do as a brand with we have a 3-pillar strategy, and one of the pillars is something called positive activism, where we know very well that we have a power and a voice in influencing our consumers in changing that mentality of slow fashion, and challenging that concept of overconsumption, ownership, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in many ways, yes, consumers maybe have a role to play in the sense of, okay, think about your wardrobe, try to have something standardized, et cetera, et cetera. All of the typical recommendations that you can get in your Vogue magazine, right? But more importantly, I think it's very much the industry's responsibility to push this culture change. And we cannot really rely on our customers or consumers to do this. It's really our responsibility to do this.
You said, Silvia, do you have?
I completely agree. I completely agree with Laura. It's our responsibility to create awareness, to pass a strong message. We produce, we have to sell, because we also create jobs around us and wellness for all the people involved in our value chain. But it's important that our buyers, they know they know how to conceive the value of what they have in hand. So we need to let them understand the real value of things. It's not just a product, just wear and throw. It's something that has something behind, has people, the work of many people indeed, and a value that a biker passing through. So it's just spreading our message as much as possible, letting people know exactly what they're buying and the value that is behind a product.
I do agree with all of you. And I think this is like the most important thing to realize for the consumers is that maybe we can buy a t-shirt or a pair of jeans for less than $10, $20, but the price is actually way higher that we pay because we pay by destroying the environment that we live in. And there is not that much time that we have left. So I guess this can be the ending sentence. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience and your insights from the company. And that's it. Have a
Thank
lovely
you very
afternoon.
much, Laura and Silvia. I learned an unbelievable amount. Really appreciate
Thanks for
your
having
time.
us.
Thank you for guesting us.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.